The Rebbe starts off the Sikha by saying that we know that in Torah is a Torah achas. It's a unified Torah. We have many different layers in Torah, different parts, different explanations, Pshat Remes, Drush, and Soid, but it's all one Torah. And we see this in the Zohar that discusses that we have Pnimiyas HaTorah and Nigla the Torah, but they're both part of one whole. One is the Neshama and one is the Guf. So the Rebbe asks, we find regarding the Machloikus of Korach, in Pnimiyas HaTorah we focus on some very, very heightened great ideas that Korach had. And in fact, we even say that the mistake that he had was because the kinds of things that he wanted would have been more suitable for La'asid Lavai, the time when Mashiach comes, La'asid Lavai, but not in the world the way we currently have it. But when we look in Derech HaPshat and Pshutish Mikra, Korach seems like a pretty terrible person with all the terrible things that happened to him, the punishment that he has, the tremendous descent and fall that he had. So how do these two things go together? The Rebbe says, although we can't say this is a very strong question because, of course, there's many different parts and layers and understandings of Torah, but nevertheless, since we know that the four ways of Pshat Remes Drush Soid are similar to the four worlds, four spiritual worlds, which are Ishtalshalus, one comes from the other, one is related to the other, so it would have to be that even in Derech HaPshat is in some way related also to the things that are discussed in the deeper dimensions of Torah, and therefore even al Derech HaPshat, we should be able to find something about the qualities of Korach. How do we understand this? In order to explain this, the Rebbe asks first a number of questions in the Psukim. Number one, how can we understand the idea of the 250 people that joined Korach being ready to offer up the Ktoros with which Moshe Rabbeinu was testing them? They knew clearly that Nadav and Avihu died already through the Ktoros. Number two, the Rebbe says, in Medrash, the Medrash tells us, Rashi also brings it, that Moshe Rabbeinu says to the to Korach and to these people, he says, you want to be a Kohenim Gdolim? I also want to be a Kohen Gadol. But practically we only have one Kohen Gadol, just like we have one Hashem, etc. So the Rebbe asks, we need to understand what's going on over here. Here you have 250 people that are standing with a machloikas against the Kohuna Gdoila against Aaron. They want to take it away from him. Moshe Rabbeinu is, so to speak, joining them. He's saying, I'm in the same boat as you. I also want this. Furthermore, what was even the point of saying it? Why is he even mentioning that? Another question the Rebbe has. In regards to the whole machloikas of Korach, the Eibishter had promised Moshe Rabbeinu, V'gam b'choy ya'aminu lo'olam, the Yidden are going to believe in you forever. How can we now have Korach and his people not believing that Hashem sent Moshe Rabbeinu? We're speaking of here about 250 people that were leaders, Roshei Sanhedrois. Furthermore, the Rebbe says, the Rambam tells us that the reason why in all future generations, if a person ever wants to come deny the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, we're not going to listen to him, is because Matan Torah is something we all experience by ourselves. And therefore, what a Navi was going to say later cannot contradict something that we saw ourselves. So the Rebbe says that's even in later generations. Imagine the people in the generation of Moshe. How does it make sense that you can have Korach and all of his people not believing in Moshe Rabbeinu? So the Rebbe says the explanation is that, as the pasuk itself says, Korach and his people, what did they want? Ubikashtem gam kahuna. This is what they want. What they wanted. In other words, says the Rebbe, Korach was not coming to deny that Moshe Rabbeinu is the shliach of Hashem. He's not coming to deny that whatever Moshe Rabbeinu did, even giving out the Kahuna Gdoila, was as what Hashem wanted. But what he did hold was that even though Moshe Rabbeinu came based on what Hashem says, this could still be changed. Just like we find regarding Tefillah and Bakasha, that things could change even if there was already a decree. We found this already. Moshe Rabbeinu's davening changing the decrees after the Chet HaEgel and after the Meraglim. Korach held that we could get Hashem to take away the Kahuna Gdoila of Aaron and give it over to Korach. In fact, Kahuna was taken already away once from the B'chorim and given to the Leviim, Shevet Levi. Especially over here, there's a good reason for it. Aaron had somewhat of a connection to Chet HaEgel. Bnei Levi did not at all. So what was the issue over here? Korach is not coming to argue against Moshe Rabbeinu in the sense that Moshe Rabbeinu did something wrong. He wants to change it. So when we come to the 250 people, they too are not coming to deny what Moshe Rabbeinu heard from Hashem. But they're saying they also want to be Kohenim Gedolim. Korach perhaps wanted to be a Kohen Gadol instead of Aaron, but they just wanted to be Kohenim Gedolim as well. In other words, they had such a great desire to be Kohenim Gedolim that, as Moshe Rabbeinu says, I also have this desire. It's a very great and good desire. It's someone standing in front of Hashem all of the time, like the Kohen Gadol. Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, yes, it might be a good desire, but there's only one Kohen Gadol. But they don't listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. Their desire is so strong, they're ready to give up their lives for it, like we actually find in the second Beis HaMikdash, where Kohenim Gedolim were dying just about every year, because they weren't worthy to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and yet they were pushing and paying to be able to be Kohenim Gedolim, because they thought it was worth it. Says the Rebbe, now we can see that even in Pshutei Shel Mikra, the whole machloikas of Korach and his people is coming because of a very, very great and holy idea where they want to be Kohenim Gedolim, they want to be close to Hashem. And where is this coming from? Says the Rebbe, it's actually very interesting. We could see this in the words of Korach. Korach says, all of the people are Kulam Kedoshim, Ubesoicham Hashem, Umadua Tisnasu. What does Rashi tell us in this from the Medrash? That all of the Yidden heard at Har Sinai the words Anoichi Hashem Elekecha. Why are you special? What happened by Matan Torah? Hashem says to the Yidden, Va'atam Tili Mamleches Koyanim V'goy Kadosh. You are Koyanim. Baal Turim says they're even level, understand, on the level of Koyanim Gedolim. So this is something that's shaykh to every Yid. And this is what Korach and his people are saying. We have this desire to be Koyanim Gedolim. Says the Rebbe actually, based on this, will also be very geschmack why we call this Parsha Parshas Korach. We're not speaking anything negative about Korach. We're not indicating his machloikas, because the lesson we take from Korach is not only to stay away from machloikas and the negative and the bad. There's also something positive over here, that ratzon, that desire to be close to Hashem, which is something that we really get from Matan Torah. But practically, there could only be one Kohen Gadol, but that desire is a great thing. Says the Rebbe, we can now ask the following question. We have a Rambam. The Rambam tells us in regards to Shevet Levi that not only Shevet Levi alone is holy, etc., but every single Yid that wants to get involved and serve the Eibush, to remove himself from all the physical thing, is also on the level of Kodesh Kodashim, can be very, very holy. In other words, the spiritual avodah of Levi is shaykh to every Yid. So the question that Rebbe has is, what about the avodah of the Kohen Gadol? We just said that it's a good thing to have that desire, but it seems like to be a Kohen Gadol, even in the spiritual sense, that's something that no, not every Yid could have. So to be a part of Shevet Levi spiritually we could, but a Kohen Gadol not. The Rebbe says, another interesting thing over here is we see the following. In regards to Shevet Levi, the Rambam says every single Yid that wants to be on the level of Shevet Levi can be on that level. The Rambam doesn't say that we all should try to be on that level, but every Yid can be on that level. When it comes to the Kuna G'dayla, it's the other way around. It's every single Yid, we said, should want to be a Kohen Gadol, but practically, no one could be a Kohen Gadol besides one person. So we have two opposites over here. Regarding Shevet Levi, we don't say that every Yid needs to want to be it, but every single Yid can be. Regarding Kuna G'dayla, we say every Yid should want to be, but not every Yid can be. In order to explain this, the Rebbe says that in Avodas Hashem, generally we have three levels. We have the idea of mitzvahs, Torah, and Mesiras Nefesh. Mitzvahs is, of course, getting involved with the Gashmi, the things, making them a Keli Telikus out of the physical world. Torah is higher than clothing itself in the world. We know that Torah is not Makabel Tumah. Torah is removed from the world. This brings out when the person the concept of being removed from the world. Mesiras Nefesh is going completely out of all boundaries, completely beyond limitations. This is a complete yichud with alikus, higher than medida v'agbola. That's what Mesiras Nefesh is all about. Says the Rebbe, these three general avodos by Yidden are the following. Most Yidden are people that are involved in mitzvahs, people that are involved in gashmi, as the things, and involved with the world. Those are called Mari Uvdin Tovin, the people doing good deeds. We then have the people that are like Shevet Levi, those that are sitting and learning Torah removed from the world. Level number 3 is the avodah of the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol that's completely spiritual, sitting in the Beis HaMikdash, in Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, complete fear and awe, in the Beis HaMikdash, and in fact even going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim once a year. The real idea of Mesiras Nefesh to become one with Hashem. So now, says the Rebbe, we'll be able to understand these two extremes that we explained regarding Shevet Levi and the Kohen Gadol, again, the Shevet Levi on the one hand, not every Yid is demanded that he should be like Shevet Levi, but every Yid can be like Shevet Levi. Whereas the Kohen Gadol, again, we said every Yid should want to be like the Kohen Gadol, but no one could be like the Kohen Gadol, besides one person is like the Kohen Gadol. So the Rebbe explains it like this. We have the avodos of Torah and mitzvahs. Again, the main avodah for most people is the avodah of mitzvahs, making this world into a world of dira b'tachtonim. But if a person wants to, not varucha yosef, if a person is interested and motivated and wants to learn Torah, this is something that's shaykh to every single Yid. He could learn Torah and be removed from the world. But then comes the avodah of the Kohen Gadol, which we say is the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. Now this is not a regular seder for a person to have on a regular basis, but he could have and should have the desire for it. Meaning to say, again, the main avodas of the Yid are the two avodas, either being involved in the Gashmis of the world and doing mitzvahs, that's an avodah for every Yid, or the avodah of Limud Torah, where he's removing himself from the world. So what did we say? That every single Yid, as the Rambam said, could be like Shevet Levi. We're not saying he has to be, or that he has to have the desire, but every Yid could be removed from the world like Shevet Levi. But then we say that in either one of these avodas, whether you're like the most Yid in being involved in the mitzvahs in the world, or you're like Shevet Levi, being removed from the world, but within both of them, every single Yid is shaykh, and should have always that desire that he wants to be completely one with Hashem, like the Kohen Gadol. So again, practically, it's either Torah or mitzvahs, but within that it has to be infused with that excitement and desire of being completely one with Hashem. And where a person wants to be, that's as if he's actually there, and through that we are actually be zoichel to bepoil, to the Gili of La'asid, when it'll be fulfilled that Leviim will be Koyanim. And furthermore, every Yid will be like the Kohen Gadol, and that's of course going to be by the Gula Mitzvah Shleima, the Mashiach Tzidkeinu, when Moshe va'Aaron imohem.